recording. They're getting recorded.
Shut up.
I didn't think it was going to be this much people. It's usually one person. They usually pick one person. That would be scary because it could be little people.
It's been recording us.
Yeah, it's been recording this day. Wait.
All right, welcome everybody. Time being 7:03, I call to order the Franklin School Committee meeting. Meetings are recorded by Franklin TV and shown on Comcast Channel 9 and Verizon Channel 29, as well as recorded by Franklin Matters. And at the conclusion of our meeting, we'll be adjourning to executive session and will not be returning back. All right, so tonight we are pleased to introduce the members of the Helen Keller School Student Council who will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. This council consists of 18 committed 4th and 5th grade students, supported by their teacher advisors, Mrs. Eichmann, 4th grade teacher, and Mrs. Fritz, literacy specialist. Along with their proud principals and teachers, please join me in welcoming the representatives who are here with us tonight.
I have the pleasure of introducing Maisie Brown, Carly D'Agostino, Aya Jadid, Claire Doucette, Luca Federico, Alice Jacoby, Zoe Halliday, Jennifer Hughes, Grace Johnson, Ryan Klein, Julie Lucier, Martina Martinez de Freitas, Maddie Posiadala, Will Quinn, Kinder Russo, Rory Schlitzer, Sam Siemens, and Holly Smith.
Now, as a Keller Student Council member, each student plays an important role in representing the interests and thoughts of their classmates while working to improve our school community. Students meet monthly during recess with their advisors, and together they talk about ideas and make decisions as a group, with everyone having a chance to provide input. The Student Council members have promoted and organized community days that display Keller's core values of care and respect by leading the following projects: a fall food drive to support the Franklin Food Pantry, where they collected over 400 pounds of food, collecting over 103 coats to donate to Coats for Kids and Families in partnership with Anton Cleaners and Jordan's Furniture, making classroom visits to explain our Valentine's for Veterans projects with the Franklin Senior Center, planning community days for this spring that promote awareness and acceptance, and they will soon reveal a special Keller Spirit Week calendar of events for the end of May. Another key part of being a student council representative is welcoming new students and helping them feel included and supported in our school. Together, the council members work to create a Welcome to Keller brochure for new students. The brochure highlighted important things to know about Keller, things that made Keller unique, favorite spots in Franklin, fun school-based events, and explains Keller's core values of caring, inclusive, intelligent, respectful, and unique. When reflecting on the roles as student council representative and why it's important for them, students share the following. Being a representative makes me feel like a leader. Opportunities related to public speaking are helping to prepare me for a job when I'm older. I like helping to come up with new ideas for our school. I join because it's important to me that I help others. Our school enjoys Love Keller Days, where we partner classrooms for special activities, and I wanted to help plan that. And I like representing our school and our community. Keller is thankful for the care, collaboration, and dedication of our student representatives, and together with their families, we are so proud of them. Now, if we could all rise, and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. You did a fantastic job. If you would like, feel free. You can head on out and get a special treat on your way home. Always a fantastic way to start off the meetings. And we will pass now, just as is customary. We'll pause for a moment of silence. Thank you. All right, routine business, agenda look okay to everybody? All right, payment of bills taken care of, payroll, Vice Chair McNeil.
Payroll in order.
All right, FHS student reps?
We have
We have
no
mi-
student reps tonight, so they had previous commitments and couldn't make it, so.
All right. Then go to the superintendent's report.
Okay. Good evening, everyone in the chambers and online. I wanted to start by just recognizing, it's with great pride that I recognize a group of outstanding musicians that are here who have achieved remarkable accomplishments. After months of dedicated practice and rigorous audition process, these talented students have earned the coveted spot in the All-State Music Festival. Only the top musicians from throughout the state are accepted. Their hard work, passion, commitment, and excellence have set them apart, and we are thrilled to celebrate their achievement today. So I would like to call up a few of our musicians, and we will do a round of applause once I have the group up, and I'll say a few additional words. So if we could have Emma Anderson, who plays the French horn, to please come up. Ace Eagerman, string bass. Alex Fioravanti, euphonium. Francis Fracassa, French horn. And Emily Lou, violin. Let's give these folks a round of applause. We're also joined by Miss Leanne Rudsit, who's here representing the music program, and I'd like to thank her and Miss Diane Plouffe for their work in our music department. One thing I've said in the past, and I want to just say again, it's not lost on me. You're here accepting a round of applause from a lot of people, but the amount of time that you've had to put in individually in your room or in your basement or wherever you practice, the hours it takes to get this good, is just not lost on, I don't think, anyone in here who has practiced at anything. And I just wanted to say congratulations. I think this is a tremendous honor, and we're just so proud of you, and you represent Franklin, and this is well-deserved. So thank you for what you do. Now, if you'd all like to make a speech, no, just kidding. You don't have to do that. Mr. Callahan?
The school committee and the superintendent, wouldn't mind maybe jumping in for a quick photo with these terrific students?
Sure. Mr. Sherlock going to take that photo? Or?
We're going around. You guys take steps. You want to come up here? Yeah, I can see.
Everybody can see. Everybody smile. Thank you.
Thank you.
Shout out to our elementary and middle school music teachers too, because I think that's the finished product. But when I think about any area of our academics, it starts in pre-K through elementary, and then we see the where students end up by 12th grade. But I think it's a contribution from many educators along the way that help inspire our kids. So just wanted to say that. Okay. Moving on in the announcements. So Franklin Panther Pride Night was held on January 30th, 2025 for students and families for upcoming Freshman students, they were invited into the Franklin High School to learn more about the exciting academic offerings, athletics, clubs, and activities available to students. Our principal, Dr. Weber, and the FHS leadership team facilitated presentations to families. And we hope that over the course of the evening, the students and families who attended were left with a sense of excitement and enthusiasm for the opportunities available to them at FHS. The half-day professional development day on Monday, February 10th, there was a half-day for students. The day focused on district reorganization for K-8 educators. The format varied by level, however, staff members came together in their 25, 26 school buildings and had opportunities to engage with administrators and colleagues across the district. This was a step in the transition process, and I just wanted to acknowledge that, we're experiencing tremendous transition. So everyone's in a different place on that continuum. So I wanted to just put an acknowledgement out around people in different phases. And with that said, I wanted to thank our leadership team and our staff for engaging in those afternoon sessions during that time. Spring conferences are approaching for families with students in grades K to 8. There are 2 early release days scheduled for March 11th and March 12th, 2025. Please be on the lookout for communication from your building administrators or teachers with more information regarding that. And that completes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Questions, comments from the committee? Thank you for the update. Thank you very much.
Okay, moving right along. FY26 budget vote. So just to kind of set some context, on January 28th, I presented the superintendent's recommended budget. We then moved to February 4th. We held the open hearing, and now we are at February 11th, which is your vote on and to approve a budget. So I prepared just 4 slides. I've condensed this down to keep this, if you've been paying attention, it should be a reminder. If this is new information to anybody, I hope that this is like the, just the boiled down version of where we landed with our budget. So I might even just stay here, probably be easier. I normally don't prepare slides for this night, but through some feedback and just from last year, just trying to continue to frame where we're at as a district and kind of how we landed at the budget we landed. And then I hope that these particular materials can then translate into our advocacy around our budget as a school system and represent what's taken place, particularly this year with our reorg. So if you could just move the slide, Dr. Rogers. So basically, in a nutshell, the total budget request is for $80,395,338. That's a 3.78% increase over FY25. If you think about that in dollars and cents, that's a $2.9 million increase, right? It is based on the idea of fixing and resolving and solving the our town's structural deficit. So currently, this takes into effect that if we were to solve this $3.6 million deficit, that's what would be required for us to land this budget. So that's been said over multiple meetings, but I just want to point that out. We put our best foot forward to try to put a budget that we know is more than our budget allows, but through the structural deficit, if we solve it, this is the outcome of that. There are contributing factors, right, that play into this. So the district reorganization, some savings were seen there. New positions that were reclassified were not increased to the total FTE, and then it allowed us to create some stability at other levels that we work through. So if you look at the right-hand side, there are still some assumptions that need to be worked out that we're still getting information on. This year, we were asked to do our budget earlier. We landed a recommended budget on January 28th. In previous years, I've done this presentation on March 13th. Just to give a sense. In a year where we're also doing a lot of reorganizing, it's been certainly in an effort to try to land all of these planes, I've said that wrong, that analogy, land these planes as we move forward. So if you can move to the next slide. There's only 4. Here, right, we did see a reduction of 20 staff, and those are the reduced areas in which they occurred. But also what I will say is this budget also represents is preserving class sizes. If you go to previous slides from the 4th or from the 28th, you'll see a breakdown of sections and restoring some previously cut positions that we experienced over the summer. This includes, an example would be middle school orchestra, some elementary classroom teachers, and then you'll see the reclassification of some positions that help support the middle school model. We've sustained our counseling services across the district in this budget. We've looked at the tiered supports that we've had in place in previous years to provide that level of support, and then ultimately investing in our curriculum, and then fees, reducing the transportation athletic fees. Right now, our athletics department, we had to increase those fees significantly, and our bus transportation. So this incorporates into this particular budget model the ability to bring those fees back into more of a market value for what people who live in this area would pay for such things as big yellow buses and athletics. So those are the things that are in this budget, and this is what it represents. If you move forward one more slide, with the reorg, we're at that 2.9 million. If you factor in a variety of things like the current staffing we have, the model, expenses, health insurance on our employees, if we had not redistricted, you can see the difference here. This is a once in a career, certainly once in my career, event where this amount of change at once has certainly, this is the only year we're going to be able to demonstrate this type of model. And we've experienced reductions in cuts throughout our system that have resulted in some pain within this district and throwing off our numbers and our caseloads and whatnot. These reductions, if you go back to the first slide, Dr. Wright, I think that's the end. You can go back one more. Oh, right there. Allow us to make these reductions in a once in a career or once in a life cycle of a community when you unify 3 middle schools under one roof and 5 elementaries under 4. So this budget, I'm proud of the budget and what it reflects and what it represents to get class sizes back into line, but ultimately it's all predicated on solving this $3.6 million. So my hope is that this recommendation is before you to take a vote. I also would say that we need to work together in a unified approach to have a successful solution, which would come in the form of an override, but ultimately to solve this budget deficit in order for this particular budget to turn into the one that we have at least as the starting point to move forward. So with that said, I'll want me to recommend and then you can open it up?
Yeah, or go ahead.
How do you want to do it?
Well, yeah, I'll, why don't you give you a recommendation, I'll open up a motion.
Okay. I recommend approval of the FY26 budget in the amount of $80,395,338 as discussed.
All right. Is there a motion?
I move to approve the FY26 budget in the amount of $80,395,338 as discussed.
Second.
Second.
All right, questions and comments? We'll kind of just begin down here.
So I've gotten a few emails, just looking to understand kind of the thought process behind the fee adjustment versus some focus on the arts. I don't know if you could go into that at all. I know we've had a lot of discussions around it, but I think people are very interested in kind of understanding the balance that we have there.
Yeah. So the way we designed the budget was looking at the fees was certainly something that when we had to move to self-funding had created a shock in certain areas based on some of the fee hikes that went up. With the arts, we did incorporate restoring the orchestra position at the middle level. And then as we look to unify, this is the only year when you think about as we've structured our class sizes and our section counts across the elementary, middle, and high, the arts positions that we had to reduce in previous budgets, not creating additional reductions moving forward, but putting folks into 4 schools shared across complexes allows us to keep the same amount of FTE in those particular areas across the elementaries and the middle. And that's how we've built the budget based on the class size recommendations and the caseloads. So this is an example of when you make reductions in a model that has you spread out across multiple schools, by not making any further reductions, but consolidating and unifying under less roofs, if you will, allows you to provide the time. And you'll see in the future when we present information regarding how the building blocks of a schedule eventually. We'll share that with you all. Once the staff has the opportunity to see that information, you'll see how some of that played out.
And is there any detail surrounding the perceived flexibility of being able to kind of modulate fees versus an FTE or kind of trying to bring a program back on, especially in the environment that we're currently in?
Yeah, we reclassified, it's in the last slide. Dr. Rogers, how many reclassified positions?
34.
Yeah.
We classified them
Yeah.
for 34 positions.
Yeah, across the elementary and middle levels and high school, but mostly elementary and middle. So we actually did take a lot of FTEs and look at the model we have for one unified middle school with 1,000 kids and make sure that we're providing the resources needed to support that model in the new formation as they are. The same with the 500 elementary schools, 500 kid elementary schools. So we did look at that. Are you asking me?
I'm asking more about the financial flexibility.
Yeah.
So fees are something that can be viewed as significantly more flexible. And if there are changes, again, this is dependent on being able to resolve the $3.6 million
Right.
structural deficit. Being able to plan in a variable situation like we're in,
Yeah,
with fees as kind of a sliding response, is easier than being able to, trying to bring on FTEs, trying to restore kind of that broader base
Yep.
required to really kind of bring the arts back to where they were. I'm just
Yep.
trying to, kind of
Yep.
make sure that conversation is clear to folks
Yep.
and kind of go through that. So is that part of the thinking around kind of looking at reducing fees versus trying to bring back a section of the arts?
yeah, it is. And also, when you look at these master schedules, when you look at the grade configuration, so you have a K1, 2, and you have a 3, 4, 5, for example, and you look at the arts that are assigned to those students, when you look at across keeping the same staff level we have in a different model where we have more sections under one roof, that's where I think when we feel, this is an example of when you feel the pain of reductions spread out over multiple buildings, this is one of those areas. The idea with the fees is trying to, that was one of the objectives, was to try to bring our fees back into reality. What I'll say is if we don't solve this $3.6 million deficit, I have a slide, I think it's the next one, this one. The risk is looking at keeping fees where they are. That just comes right off the table as even an option to maintain fees. These are all the areas that are at risk if we have to look at cutting $3.6 million. These are all the areas that exist within a budget. So looking at our reclassified positions, anything we restored, class sizes, and then fees would come off the table in that regard. So I think with the way the elementary team is built, for example, the arts, and the way the middle school team built Unified Arts, was actually looking at, in a master schedule with this many kids, as you rotate through each grade, how are those students getting to their art? It has to also match with the teacher prep. So all those things, so sometimes when someone says add a teacher, it's not as simple if it doesn't fit within the schedule of how the master schedule would work, so.
Okay.
And, sorry. So just to make sure folks are clear, so right now the budget that we have, the 80.3 million, this is dependent on or contingent on a successful override. And if there is not a successful override, we'll be here
Well-
again talking about this based off of whatever allocation we get from town administrator or town council.
Yes, we would need to readjust the budget. But we're going off of what was allocated from the town administrator's 5-year fiscal forecast. These can adjust. But the allocation that the school is one department across many, this is the allocation also that we are at and what we've met in order to move our budget forward as we go through and move forward. If we were in a situation where an override failed or wasn't, we didn't have one, if it doesn't pass, we will then have to restructure our budget, and then we'll have to represent information to you based on whatever the new allocation is, if it's less than that. Does that make sense?
Yep, it does, thank you.
Okay.
And then just with the fees, so I know what the mention was that to get this comparable within the market, but I wonder, do we compare it against other towns that have healthy budgets versus us? Because, like, if we look at the numbers and compare it against the private sector, so we'll say Uber for a ride, right? Our buses are, what, $500 per kid? we're talking about 180 days there and back, right? So we do the math, we're talking about $1.40 roughly per ride, which you can't get that ride anywhere else. So like market-wise compared to other schools, yes, we may be higher. However, I feel like compared to if somebody had to pay it out of pocket to do this outside of us, they're getting a significant deal. And I guess my point is, is the fee that high at that point? You know, like, because you're getting a deal. Same with sports, $1,000 for a season, whereas you go to a club, you're paying $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 for that club. So like, I just, my concern is if we reduce the fees, that money is coming from someplace else, and it could be better used if we didn't reduce the fees and we, put it to other programs.
Fees range, when you say 500, we have fees, I'm looking, Ms. Malaya just showed, just locally, they range from 275 up to 475 on them, that's a North Shore town. So I think it's a range, but ultimately, when you start to hone in and look at, I think what I would say is in just the impact, the input I've received from the community through this, and one bucket has been around our fee hikes and our ability to sustain. We're gonna do a transportation presentation for you on March 11th. 11th?
Yeah.
Okay, March 11th, which will talk through. The big question in the room is, now that you've reorganized at, for example, elementary schools, how many students are over 2 miles that you have to transport? So we'll have we'll have a lot of information, but what we also have to think about with fees is there's a tipping point too. When you increase them too much and you see subscribership drop versus trying to find that spot that's affordable. So that's the piece. And the other thing is trying to solve is we're looking at this $3.6 million deficit. If you are going to continue to have fees where you're self-funding with no cap, I mean, my inbox, I have a family who's paid $4,000 because they have multiple children playing with a $1,000 sport in 1 year. And I think when we look at needing to solve the $3.6 million, it's around how do we infuse some expense into trying to bring that into reality so that people aren't saying, why would I vote for an override and I'm still gonna pay $4,000 in fees, where I think that was part of the idea, was trying to look at how do we balance the system and bring it down. And this is the only year, I think, because of the reorganization, where we find ourselves in this situation where we're able to look at reclassifying some positions to meet the needs of our students, adding back through the reclass, adding back 3 elementary classroom teachers so that we have those balanced sections across all schools. That's all part of this as it, trying to provide something for everyone. And we know that in middle school, the chorus piece was one of the music positions that was impacted kind of programmatically, that we felt like were one of the positions with those 8 that was restored.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
First of all, I'd like to thank you and your entire team for all the work that you put into creating this budget for more than the past few months. It's been a really years-long process that's gone into this. So, thank you all, and the accelerated timeline concurrent with redistricting, it's been absolute mountain to scale. So, thank you all. And I'd also like to thank my fellow committee members for all the work, all the diligence, the questions, time, dedication throughout this process. I really appreciate that too. I don't have any questions because I think we've asked all the questions over these past few weeks. We've taken a look at our fiscal situation, revenues. We've examined how different factors affect not only the educational experience, but also how much you're paying for things. Last week during the budget hearing, we took a look at a fine-tooth comb at what each line item does. We've made the hard choices through the redistricting vote to maximize our efficiencies where we can to get the most out of the resources that we have to consolidate, and while still maintaining a high quality educational experience for the students of Franklin. We've done what we can on this committee. It's what people of Franklin voted us and elected us to do what we can here. And as Superintendent Jagir was very clear, it's up to the community now. It's up to the community to support this budget through an override and making sure that we have the revenues to support it and support the students of Franklin, as we believe we are providing them with that educational experience through this. So, again, thank you for the work that you've done. Thank all my fellow members here, and I ask the community to please show your support for this budget. Thank you.
So, yeah, not a lot of questions. I've asked a lot of questions in the past. I do think it's important for the community to understand on that slide where you showed what it would have cost if we hadn't done the school consolidation. This is great for, especially when you're in front of the finance committee and the town council, because the larger community will see this, you know, we did the hard work to help the town financially while still maintaining, you know, optimal educational outcomes. I think that for those who are reaching out saying, you know, why are we doing level service? We should try to restore. This is where the restoration was able to occur without us having to, you know, get back that 6.8 that we lost in the override. So there were economies of scale that we're able to take advantage of and get our class sizes down and get some restoration. So this budget is level service for what is appropriate, I guess is what I'd tell the community. And just because I do see, oh, and to Al and Paul's point, just because we've been talking about fees for a couple, well, more than a couple meetings now in policy, I can say to you as the chair of policy that if the override were to fail, I would certainly not be somebody who was looking to cut fees. Like, I think that's the last thing that I would want to change. But to Lucas's point, there is a tipping point, like with the transportation, when we went from 360 up to 500, we lost $53,000 this year. That was like a difference in how many people chose to send their drive their kids versus. So we're just trying to stay kind of, you know, similar, but yeah, I just wanted you guys to kind of know that. And just to the educators, I see so many educators in the chambers tonight. I just want to address the structural deficit slide that lists out like, hey, this budget is dependent on a past override. I know many of you are jaded from living in this town for 18 years without being able to pass an override. I just want to say that I think there's a significant contingency of voters out there that do not want to see a structural deficit fall on the backs of the schools again. So I think that we're all going to feel it in all different departments. I just think that's worth saying. Like, I don't want anybody to think, oh my God, if this fails, like we're going to see what happened last year all over again. I don't think that's the case. I don't think that the people of Franklin will support that level of cuts to the schools again after what we just did for the town with the redistricting. So I think that we have a larger part of the community behind us now, maybe people who aren't stakeholders in the school system, who are now seeing the work that the administrative, and you all have done and will be doing in May and June when we're packing up and moving. And I think that you are getting credit from a group of people in this town that maybe you don't hear from otherwise. So just worth mentioning. So thank you.
Thank you, Lucas and team, and fellow members as well. And the slide before, the service level slide. Before that, no, fourth slide. Yes, this slide says it all. I just want to say to the community, like this slide is the answer for all the questions, and 3.75%, like it comes around $300 per household average. So that's a very reasonable to make the Franklin in the vicinity as well as retain the value of Franklin. That's all I can tell. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now, if there's any comments from those in council chambers?
God for Steve.
Good evening, and thank you, everybody. My name is Donna Grady, and I am the president of the Franklin Education Association. As Ruth Ann noticed, we have quite a few educators tonight who have some stories to share. I just have a kind of a budget comment that I just want to share with you all, and then these folks are going to talk to you about their experiences. I just want everyone to remember that every dollar is attached to a student, to a child. Where I don't want to say we're cavalier about talking about money, but when you talk about the money, picture the face of a student, because that's what this money is attached to, a living, breathing student that we all see every day. And it's easy to forget when we see the dollar sign, but these are children that we are dealing with, number one. The second thing is that I will say is, you know, as Superintendent Jaguar noted, we've cut positions and we've repurposed positions as well. But there's a narrative in our town, and it's been here for quite some time, that the educators are used to taking less and are used to cuts because that's what we do. And it is what we do in order to, quote unquote, save positions. But the reality is we've done that for years. I've been in the town for 26 years. We've cut more and more positions or repurposed, and yet every time we've tried to reinstate them, we've taken the hit, but we still cut more. And so it's been noted over and over and over, what we have now is only the beginning if the override doesn't go through. So we have approximately 26 cuts now already. We've repurposed 34 positions, but if the override doesn't pass or even isn't considered, that's just the tip of the iceberg. And this is on top of all of the other positions and people that we've lost over the years. And again, I'm going to say, when you think of money, think of the children, because that's who this is affecting every day. I'm going to pass this to Catherine Kellett, who is one of our wonderful negotiations team members, who helped organize this wonderful congregation of educators who really want you to hear what all of this has done to impact our students, but also us, because it does impact us. So Catherine, thank you very much.
Thank you, Donna. And again, my name is Catherine Kellett. I am an English teacher at Franklin High School, and I want to thank Superintendent Jaguar and School Committee Chair Callahan for giving educators the opportunity to share our thoughts and perspectives tonight. And we especially appreciate the opportunity to speak early in the evening so that we don't have to stay up too much past our bedtimes. So we're here tonight to talk to you and to the Franklin community about the impact of the budget cuts on educators and students over the past year. And as Donna mentioned, this is only the tip of the iceberg. As educators, we come to this profession with a passion for helping students become the best versions of themselves. We want them to reach their potential and become thoughtful, productive, caring citizens of the world. We celebrate their successes, and we pick them up when they are in crisis. However, the strain on resources in this community has affected our ability to educate in the fullest way that we can. Over the last 2 years alone, we have lost over 50 educators, 20 of whom were given pink slips last week due to the reorganization. Let me give you an example from my own experience. In the English department at the high school, we have lost 3 teachers over the last 2 years. Their students have been distributed to the remaining English teachers, creating larger class sizes. I have 4 AP English language sections this year, each with 25 to 26 students. This class size is up from 18 to 21 students last year. I have had to reduce the number of timed essays that I assign because of the physical limitation of how much I can grade, and I am a pretty fast grader. Moreover, that we have been told that without a significant reduction of paper usage, teachers may face a white paper freeze in the coming months. I teach a diverse group of students, many of whom have impulse control struggles. And so to rely solely on screens and technology to deliver my instruction would mean that I am not meeting the needs of all of my students, which is a charge I take very seriously from the state. Educating students is the most important, and I would dare say, sacred responsibility that a community has. To do that, educators and students need adequate resources. The town of Franklin must choose to fund schools adequately in order to maintain the standard of excellence that I and my colleagues hold dear. Franklin must prioritize student-facing positions above all else. That means teachers, counselors, speech and occupational therapists, psychologists, and nurses, as well as the physical resources, and yes, that includes paper, that they need to succeed and reach their full potential. So I stand here tonight with many of my colleagues who are eager to share their personal stories. And I thank you again for your willingness to hear our voices as the town works to put together a budget for next year. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for allowing us to speak tonight. My name's Laura Evans. I am a 15-year resident of Franklin, 22-year veteran Spanish teacher, and I've been the director of world languages for Franklin Public Schools for the past 12 years. I'm here tonight to respectfully advocate for the World Language Department, our program, and to share the impact that ongoing budgetary constraints and budgetary cuts have had on our world language programs and ultimately on our students' educational opportunities. Learning a world language provides students with lifelong cognitive, academic, and career advantages. Research shows that multilingual students develop stronger problem-solving skills, better memory retention, and improves critical thinking. From a career perspective, fluency in another language opens doors to global job opportunities, increases earning potential, and is an asset in the fields of business, healthcare, law, government, and STEM. In an increasingly interconnected world, multilingualism is no longer a skill, it's a necessity. Latin in particular offers unique benefits. As the root of over 60% of English words, Latin strengthens vocabulary and comprehension, making it especially valuable for students pursuing law, medicine, and science, where Latin terminology is foundational. Studies also have shown that Latin learners outperform their peers in reading and analytical skills because the language requires careful decoding and logical thinking. Beyond academics and careers, language learning, as we all know, fosters cultural awareness, empathy, and global citizenship, a big goal of ours here in Franklin Public Schools. Investing in world language education is an investment in our students' future. At the high school level in Franklin, budgetary constraints have led to adjustments in world language offerings, sadly resulting in the phase-out of Latin. Moving forward, Franklin High School will only offer Spanish and French. While student requests for Latin have decreased by a small number of students, which is common in many content areas, there still remains enough interest to run sections. However, given the financial limitations and the challenges, which I understand, of sustaining lower enrollment programs, the decision was made to discontinue Latin rather than explore alternative models for maintaining the program. To put this in context for you, in many of our neighboring districts, so I'm talking about the Hockomock, I'm talking about Desi's Dart districts, I'm talking about just our neighboring towns. They have significantly more language options than we do at Franklin High School. To name a few, in Andover, Shrewsbury, and Stoughton, they offer Spanish, Latin, French, and Mandarin Chinese. Canton offers German, Spanish, French, Italian. Foxborough, Spanish, French, American Sign Language. Grafton, Milton, Oliver Ames, Reading offers Spanish, French, and Latin. Hopkinton offers French, Spanish, Mandarin, Chinese. Milford, Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, French, and Spanish for heritage learners. Sharon, Spanish, French, Mandarin, Latin, American Sign Language, and the list goes on. Meanwhile, our students will only have 2 choices to choose from, putting them at a significant disadvantage as compared to their peers. Over the years, the middle school Spanish program has consistently been reduced in contact hours, which has watered down the program so much that it's difficult for our middle school students to enter the high school at a strong Spanish 2 course level. As much as we would like to offer multiple languages at the middle school, of course, if I had it my way, my first priority would be to significantly increase what we already have available. Contact hours in a language are essential for proficiency gains. In contrast with other schools in our area, in terms of language instruction at the middle school level, this is how we compare. Sharon, Westboro, Needham, and Weston all offer French, Spanish, and Mandarin Chinese at the middle school level. Mansfield, Grafton, North Reading, Dedham, Hanover, Norwood, French and Spanish. Holliston offers Spanish, French, French immersion. Shrewsbury offers Mandarin Chinese, French, Latin, and Spanish. And again, the list goes on. I'm not going to read too much. This is my last page. Sorry, I'm passionate. Our middle school students will only have 1 language option. They've only had 1 language option, while their peers in other towns have access to multiple languages before they even enter high school. Early exposure to language is critical in developing language proficiency, and our students are missing out. Unfortunately, these are not the only losses that our department has suffered over the past couple years. Similarly, budget limitations have led to the termination of our language lab, which has been in place for over a decade. This invaluable resource provided students with interactive opportunities to develop their listening and speaking skills in a very engaging environment, which is something we strive for. Due to budget constraints, the World Language Department is not able to purchase or renew curricular resources for at least our next school year. While we've invested significant time in creating engaging lessons with district-funded technology, these resources are no longer being funded, forcing us to redesign our materials from scratch. Some teachers have even paid for subscriptions out of their own pockets. Access to these tools is essential for providing diverse, authentic input and meaningful interactions for our students. The World Language Department has worked tirelessly to maintain high-quality instruction despite these budget cuts over the years, but we're reaching a critical point. Losing Latin, restricting language choices, eliminating technology and engagement tools, and preventing resource updates are not just cuts to a program, they're lost opportunities for our children. I urge the school committee, our school community, residents of Franklin, to consider how we can invest in world language education rather than continue to shrink it. Our students deserve to graduate with the same opportunities as those in neighboring districts. Thank you so much for listening.
Rob Vaca, Horace Mann Middle School, 8th grade, social studies in my 29th year. So I've seen a lot of budget talk over the years. I actually want to talk to the community tonight. I want to share with them something that they might not be aware of with budget constraints, and that has to do with lack of subs. And for me and for any of my colleagues to watch other colleagues double up on jobs, because we do what we do. We dive in. When there's a need, we dive in to help children and to help our students. But to watch my friends and colleagues feel pressured to help our students and stress comes with that. It's not a good experience for all of us. But again, like I said, we do what we do. They dive in. And I don't think the community is aware that when there's a lack of subs, kids are still being taught and being taught well. And I'm also fearful for our students who get services, and at times it puts us out of compliance. And at the end of the day, we need to service our students. And so I call to the community to support the budget. And I also want to end with thanking all of you. Dave, I agree, we've asked a lot of questions. And I thank the whole committee for that. And Lucas, thank you for the budget. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Helen Hoffenberg, and I've been an educator in Franklin for the last 18 years, teaching English at Franklin High School. I've worked under 6 different department heads, 5 different principals, 5 different superintendents, and with dozens of amazing colleagues that have since left our community. Although the insane turnover rate of highly qualified teachers is an important discussion point, I'm going to use this moment to talk about the Franklin Arts Academy, an amazing program that is currently being phased out due to those budget cuts. 15 years ago, I helped create this program that aims to teach core subjects like English, history, and science to brilliant and creative students. Actually, they're not just students. They are actual artists, and they have thrived in this program for 15 years. Unfortunately, this group of often marginalized students will no longer have a specific space that helps them foster and apply these incredibly important, critical, and creative skills to the content, further putting them at a disadvantage. Ironically, my current FAA class sizes fall within the 18 to 22 students, while my 11 honors classes have 25, 26, and 28 students in each. The FAA program has been paramount in distinguishing FHS as a progressive school that cares about all students and all learning styles. In fact, 10 years ago, we applauded the FAA during a NEASC visit, yet here we are phasing out the program, and essentially those students, telling them that they are far less important than the bottom line. Thank you.
Hi there. My name is Emily LaLiberty, and I'm sorry I'm a little nervous, so just bear with me. And I'm currently a 7th and 8th grade science teacher at Remington Middle School. I'm proud to be entering my 20th year of teaching in Franklin, and each of those years has been a rewarding experience. I've often found myself boasting to fellow educators about the working conditions here and the high quality of education we've always been able to provide, in spite of ongoing budgetary issues. One of my greatest joys has been witnessing the district's long-standing commitment to inclusion. However, my primary concern, and the reason I'm speaking to you today, is to ensure that the full impact of the proposed changes to our middle school model is understood. While the goal is to save $1.4 million, it's crucial to recognize that what we stand to lose in terms of educational quality, and most importantly, who will ultimately bear the brunt of these cost savings, our students. My journey began at Oak Street Elementary School as a special educator before transitioning to Remington in the same role. Over the years, I've worked with countless families who have moved to Franklin specifically for our exceptional special education services. Eventually, I made the decision to transition into a general education classroom, believing I could continue to support inclusion by creating a science environment where all students feel welcomed, valued, and empowered to learn. That being said, I recognize that our community is facing serious financial challenges and requires significant changes. Over the course of my 2 decades here, we've discussed the budget every year. And each year we've been faced with the threat of severe cuts, many of which have already occurred. Franklin has been a place where outstanding educators are trained and mentored, only to be lost to neighboring districts year after year. It's clear that consolidation is necessary to address our district's financial shortfall. While the proposed consolidation plans are intended to benefit the community financially, I'm concerned that the impact on our students has not been fully considered. We've been assured that class sizes will remain within limits, which is technically true. However, it hasn't been made clear that many middle school teachers will see their rosters increase by nearly 50%, from about 80 students to 110 to 120 students. This increased workload will significantly affect the quality of education we can provide. For me, this means less time to build meaningful connections with my students, understand their personal interests, sports activities, family dynamics, and cultural backgrounds. Sorry, I lost my spot. It also means less time to collaborate with families, respond to emails, and create individualized lesson plans and behavioral interventions that meet the needs of each student. The students who will be most affected by these changes are those with the greatest needs, whether academic, social, emotional, or otherwise. You may wonder how we can maintain class sizes while increasing the number of students. The answer lies in major restructuring of grades 6 through 8, changing to more of a mini Franklin High model instead of staying true to the more developmentally appropriate middle school model. Content teachers will now be expected to teach 5 sections per day of each subject. While the content of each class will remain similar, this shift means more students requiring accommodations, more parents to communicate with, and more grading, while be provided with less time during the day to doing these tasks. Additionally, students will have fewer opportunities for unified arts, dropping from 3 classes per term to 2, which reduces prep time for content teachers. Students who choose to participate in our robust music programs will do so at the expense of opportunities to participate in computer science, art, or other unified arts classes. Currently, our unified arts model allows core content teachers to have 80 minutes of prep day on average, with some days being shorter or longer. This time allows us to work regularly with special educators, related service providers, administrators, students, and families. With only one 45-minute prep per day, most of our time will be spent preparing lessons and materials, leaving less time for these essential collaborations. Personally, I don't believe I'll be able to provide the inclusive experience for students that I've always taken pride in. These changes could also mean that special education meetings might need to occur during instructional time instead of during extra prep periods that already exist in the schedule. This could result in students missing out on valuable instruction if their teacher is attending a 504 or IEP meeting. 20% of a roster, which is what our percentage is for special ed students, would mean that potentially 22 to 24 class periods each school year could be without a certified educator leading them or access to necessary support staff. I'm aware that we're getting many things in this consolidation, like more consistent and clear departmental support, additional content-based UA offerings within that one period, and a more streamlined and consistent experience across town. I'm looking forward to working with new people and getting to meet with my content area counterparts more regularly. I continue to be worried that these positives will not outweigh the challenges and will result in more teacher turnover at a time when finding new educators is challenging. I understand that many of the details about how these changes will unfold are still being worked out, and some of these concerns may be addressed between now and September. I deeply appreciate the extensive work of our administrative team, Craig Williams especially. I don't know when he sleeps. Seriously, it's amazing. And I look forward to continuing to work together to the benefit of our student population. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Sorry. There we go. Good evening. My name is Brian Gustafson. I teach music elementary at Helen Keller and Oak Street. I'm very glad to have my partner in crime with me here this evening, Mr. Jamie Barrett. And we do not have any pictures to show you. You don't have to hold anything up. You're okay. It's all me. If you know me, I like to tell stories. And this is my story for this evening. Thank you, Mr. Jaguar, for noticing elementary music and middle school music as we had the All-State people up there. Thank you, Ms. Rudsit, for all of your work with them. But I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story about elementary music because that's what I teach. But this story could be art, it could be PE, it could be anything. But this is my story. This is my 25th year here in Franklin. And for about 20 years, it was pretty much the same thing. There were 4 elementary music teachers. It was myself, Mr. Barrett, Mary McMurray, and a rotating few people in there, but ended up being Allison Fuller, who is now at the middle school. These are my notes. Then it was that way for a really long time. We taught 30-minute classes, Monday through Friday, once a week, 4 teachers. That was it. I'd pretty much end my year and I'd go, so next year, Keller, Monday through Thursday, Davis Thayer Friday. All right, I'll see you next year. And it was that way for a really long time. Until the 2022-23 school year, where we went to 40-minute classes. And when we went to 40-minute classes, we had to make a change. We added a 5th music teacher. So we had 93 classes that year, K through 5. I'm not counting any of the sub-separate classes. I'm just doing K through 5 at that time. I went back and looked at the enrollment numbers at that year, added them up today. There were 93 classes. We taught that way with 5 teachers. Then, at the end of that school year, we found out we were moving to a 6-day rotation. Because we went to a 6-day rotation with still 40-minute classes, we went from 5 elementary teachers to 3 elementary teachers. Allison Fuller left us. She went to the high school, but she is still in Franklin, thank goodness. We had 90 classes that year, and spread over 6 days, we went from 5 teachers to 3 teachers. At the end of that school year, we went from a staff in music of 15 people to 13 people, because we went from 5 music teachers to 3 music teachers. We taught that year as a 6-day rotation. At the end of that school year, we went from a staff of 13 people to a staff of 7. We are now at 7 people in our music department. This year, we are also teaching a 6-day rotation, 40-minute classes with 3 teachers. Next year, we have now found out we are going back to the 5-day, Monday through Friday, still 40-minute classes with 3 teachers. I know we say this a lot in this room, which is, let's compare apples to apples. So if we're teaching Monday through Friday, 40-minute classes, 90 K through 5 classes next year proposed in that budget, let's compare it to 22-23. We were teaching 40-minute classes, 93 K to 5 classes with 5 teachers. Now we're doing it with 3. That's what we're going to be doing next year. That's only K to 5. That doesn't include the explorations class that we teach right now, which is chorus for grades 3, 4, and 5. We do that for art as well. That does not include our sub-separate classes, Strive, Reach, Ideas, Goals. If you want to see some great stuff going on, please come to Keller and see my class where I teach those Strive kids, because man, did they love coming into my class for a music class. That is what is going to be happening next year. In June, I believe it was June 13th of 2023, I was here and I made a comment. Some of you were on school committee then, but not all of you. And I waited until the very end of the night, and there was only 2 people in this audience. It was me and Steve Sherlock. And that was it. And I talked about all the things that we have lost over 20 years in Franklin. And I said, I hope to God that I won't be back here in 20 years saying all of the things that we also have lost in 20 years. Well, folks, it didn't take 20 years. It took 20 months. That's how long ago I was here speaking about that. So I implore all the people out there, please talk to your friends, talk to your neighbors, because it's getting hard for me. I love these kids and I love this job, but every year it's getting tougher and tougher. And thank you all, school committee, for all the work you're doing. Thank you, Mr. Giguere, and everybody here for all the work that you are doing. But it's getting tough out there. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Leah Werhoftig-Sherry. I'm a Spanish teacher in the high school, and sorry, another language teacher. But thank you for hearing us tonight. I wanted to talk a little bit. We've been trained extensively the last 2 years on UDL, which is asking us to provide multiple ways for our students to access material, to learn material. So for example, hear me speaking. If I were in a classroom, you'd have the students who could hear me. I'd have words behind me that were saying the same thing. Maybe I'd have something written down on paper so my students could read. I could have closed captionings going across. So there's multiple ways that my students can understand what I am saying. And we're working really hard to do this in our classrooms, to provide an individualized education for all of our students, because that's important, right? That's what our parents want. That's what we want. We want our students to do well. However, with these budget cuts, what is happening is on a course selection level, we are losing any possibility of UDL for our students. So using languages as an example, French and Spanish are spoken languages, right? And that's all about interpersonal communication. Our very logical folk students who really are facts and logic sometimes don't fit into that mold. And they want a more, a Latin provides them with that way to get their 2 years or 3 years of a language that they need to get into colleges. If we look at in our population in the world language department, we're getting more and more heritage language speakers from French and Spanish and Portuguese, and possibly French too, right? Who are coming into our what is normally an 11th grade Spanish 4 class as 9th graders. So once they finish their Spanish 4 class, they have Spanish 5 and AP, right? They can get 3 years of language, but if they go to one of those colleges that need 4, they can't get it. You need 4 years, for some colleges, 4 years of the same language. So we are taking away their options, some of their college options, because of our lack of diversified options. So I just want to thank you again for listening to me, and that's one of our challenges.
I want to thank you all so much for everything that has been said tonight, and has been said for a number of 20 months, 20 years, and going back further and further. I really appreciate everything that's done. And, you know, as my colleagues have mentioned too, you know, it's really now at the community level too. I really kind of hope that everybody kind of understands this budget, what has been kind of put forward, the work that has gone into this, that goes into the schools and the classrooms each and every single day, and the challenges that are faced. But it's going to start to, that shift as it does kind of go into the community's hands in a little while. So, that being said, any other kind of questions or comments? All right, so, and seeing none, there's a motion on the table to recommend approval of the FY26 budget in the amount of $80,395,338 as discussed. All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can y'all come to Camp Budget tomorrow?
Yeah. Do you want to begin, Mr. Kelly?
Yeah, by all
Okay.
means, yeah.
All right, so next in your packet, you'll see a recommendation for an adoption of the drafted 25-26 calendar as discussed. It was in your packet over the weekend and provided. Ultimately, I will let Dr. Rogers speak to some of the specifics, but ultimately, given the needs of our redistricting and moving, you'll notice that the dates and how they were lined and laid out was to support the work that needs to happen as we return to school in the next school year. So I'll open it up, and then we're happy to answer any questions that you have regarding this. So I recommend adoption of the draft 25-26 school calendar as discussed.
All right, is there a motion?
Move to adopt the draft 2025-2026 school calendar as discussed.
Second?
Second.
All right, questions or comments? We'll go from this side.
Yep, so, as always.
Of course.
So just looking at the calendar, when will we have the date for high school graduation?
June 5th.
Okay.
It's
So-
just really, really small.
Yes,
It's really small.
it's really hard to read,
Oh,
but it's
yep,
the
okay.
first Friday of June
Thank
is
you.
where we typically try to land, except for that one.
Yep, yeah.
You need time.
Yep,
That's what you were asking, right?
Yeah,
To see-
thinking-
Yes.
Just
Good
making sure
catch.
that's there.
We can make that larger font maybe. I don't know, actually, it won't fit in the box.
And then, just to confirm, so, you know, this is a one-off of this calendar versus previous years. We're now going back after Labor Day. due to reorganization, do we think that this would be the norm going forward, or do you think this is just because of this year, and then next year we may revert?
I don't think this is the norm, that we would move to do what we've done for many, many years in Franklin and go before Labor Day in some combination like we've done. Do you want to speak to what your thoughts are, Dr. Rogers, because we talked a little bit about this today?
Certainly not the norm. I would agree with that. I think this gives the facilities department a little bit of extra leeway to having students back after Labor Day, with those Thursday, Friday being off completely. We typically would not do that in a typical year. The other thing that what will be interesting for us to explore is you might note the first day for students is kind of staggered, with 1 to 12 starting and then moving to K, and then pre-K Oak, pre-K Pond. And so giving us the opportunity to kind of with that phase in of the expansion to evaluate what the start of the school year would look like moving forward. So we may see the same in that structure, we may not, we'll learn from this.
Okay, perfect, yeah, because I think one of the things that I hear common is just like, when I was in school, I went after Labor Day, and I don't want folks to think that this is the norm. I want to understand that this is due to current circumstances, and, we'll see what happens. Okay. There's something else I had. I do appreciate the half days being more that Tuesday through Thursday centric. It felt like there's a very few that were Friday or Monday, so appreciate that thought. So thank you. That's it.
So my only two concerns are really around the half days. Again, appreciating that they're kind of the middle of the week, but having one like after MLK or MLK week, for a lot of parents that are working, and I know that a lot of people experience this. That's a normal week, squeezed into 4 days. So having that kind of combination is a little bit challenging. And then again, in April, basically the week before we have spring break. Again, it's that kind of just positioning. I know that there are certain limitations, but as best we can, trying to kind of drift away from either a 4-day week, adding in another half day, or right around those holiday breaks. It's just kind of piles on at that point.
Yeah, I would agree, and that's kind of the tension continuously as we evaluate a calendar for the school year is the 4-day weeks and having a half day, and also the consistency of having 5-day weeks, and the benefit that has as well. So it's trying to strike a balance, but yeah, your point's well taken.
I was wondering if you could speak a little bit to the overall number of half days, what the driver is behind that. Obviously, this year we have an exceptional number of them because of the end of the school year change, but I think that's every parent's kind of like calendar view going into the year is the overall number of half days that they have to contend with in a work week. And I know that the November often gets that No School November nickname. So if you could speak a little bit to like what the driver is behind the half days, the number of them, and kind of the spacing, that would be really helpful, just so that myself and others can understand.
Sure, I'll start, and then I would say chime in as folks see fit. Part of half days, there are 2 contractual obligations for half days, so we contractually have to have 2 half days, and then we do provide 4 half days for conferences, so to allow more time, flexibility, things of that nature, so that speaks to those. The additional 8 half days are, formerly there were more after-school meetings, and when there was a reduction of that, there was a movement towards additional half days, or maintaining a number of half days to continue professional learning, collaborative opportunities, and things of that nature. So those 8 half days, I think formerly may have years ago been 6. So there was an increase in 2 half days at some point within the past 4 or so years, I would say. And that's, the commitment to, I would say, the grant programming that we've received and the curriculum implementations that we have an obligation to provide a certain amount of PD. That's what we use those times for. Again, collaborative opportunities, some of the time is provided for teachers to come together around UDL. You've heard a little bit about the
Yep.
different kind of initiatives in that way. Also, a lot of the focus has been around building out our tiered systems of supports and how do we bring people together to look at student data and kind of build out those systems and supports. So I would say I recognize and I can appreciate the half-day piece, being a mom myself and having some of my kiddos at home some days for half-days. I appreciate that, but I would just say that we have already planned the school year professional learning for next year to balance, because we know that these first full days for next year are going to be focused on unpacking and organizing and connecting as a new school community and those types of pieces. So we've really already thoughtfully planned out what the focus of those half-days are for the next school year, to be intentional around not just not having students in class out of school for a half-day, and best utilizing the time we have with staff together.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's really helpful. I think it's just like nice to know kind of what is coming in on the other side of that half day, as parents are planning their own schedules and calendars. Yeah.
Okay, and I remember the question I had that I forgot. November 4th, I see that that's a half day on election day. Don't we typically have that as a full day off?
So contractually, we have first day of school for staff, which you'll see is the 25th. And then we have 2 additional full days. And so we can place those full days
For the
kind of
year.
wherever we want for the year. And traditionally, what has happened is that we have placed one of those on the second day of staff being back, and then the other being on election day. Being that this is not a federal election, it's a local election, and that we need the full time to have folks in their buildings to reorganize schools. We, which again speaks to, do we see this as being the norm moving forward? No. But providing the time at the forefront of the school year to kind of appropriately open schools. So it would be a half day on election day, but students would still come to school.
Okay, and I don't recall this happening before. I guess, do we have to have different plans on that date, given that we'll have a lot of people going in and out of the schools at the same time that students are coming out? Or at least at the high school level, sorry.
So we work collaboratively with the town clerk's office and our police department around the details. So what they do is, and this is in my previous district as well as a principal, what you do is you secure the building, and then you allow entrance in to vote into the gymnasium. And there's police presence specifically for voting, separate of the school runnings, to make sure that there's safety and there's checks that are put in place for sign-in. And you may have experienced that or seen that when you voted. What's that?
During the primaries.
Right, during the primary. So what we do is we close the gym off for that day for any type of physical activity in the gymnasium, but ultimately it's set up so that it operates as a voting center, and then you have police presence there out in the parking lot in the foyer, allowing them to access in and out of the gymnasium. And then we operate school in the areas where we educate kids.
Perfect.
It's a good question. I'm glad you asked it publicly, because that would be probably on people's minds.
Yeah, great, thank you.
Any other kind of questions? One thing what I will say with this, if we can make like a concentrated effort to push this out, like those half days via the app, I think would be great. I know sometimes the timing of when those messages kind of get released is different from one school to the next, so I would really appreciate that. Any kind of questions, comments? Wilson, Council Chambers? All right, seeing none, vote will come on a motion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes.
Okay. For discussion, we are bringing back to you your school committee meeting calendar. We took a stab, first of all, we corrected the election date that Mr. Charles had identified. We then looked at the structure of the meeting, and Mr. Callahan, I know that you and I had a chance to process just some of the ways this could shake out. When we looked at the week before, there was a recommendation to explore the opportunity to have an additional meeting take place on the 13th. I think it was after the long weekend. there's two things at play. One, this particular council chamber is taken, it's being utilized on that Thursday. I know on that Thursday. The other dates that were selected, it does become a bit challenging to have a meeting if it's not in here, because the first meeting for a committee, they get sworn in. So you have to swear in. So if we did it in a training room for like a workshop or whatnot, it would just, there's a couple of things there. So I don't know if there was anything that you wanted to add on this, but we tried our best. We added additional date. I think we had the January 13th and the 27th in there. And then you'll see 2 meetings per month, basically, besides the November and the April date, and July, obviously, for that reason. Did you want to talk through a little bit about?
One of the other things that kind of came up was just, I think it's like page 2, but like the update for school committee members, already kind of like figuring out, because again, this is our term would be expiring that October 28th would be the last meeting for this term, and then new folks are returning, will kind of come on board. But I had at least recalled in 21, there was a lot of questions about when exactly do we take over, when's our first meeting, how that whole process kind of comes about. And so we kind of, Superintendent Jagir already started putting forward a plan on what happens after the election to kind of welcome those new members and then kind of talk through and process the.
So I can talk through that. I just wanted to give you a moment. So basically, I think the spirit of what I was hearing was having input from the newly elected committee on that next meeting, so that you can start a meeting, hit the ground running. I think the sentiment I heard was around how do we make sure there's some input involved with those who are newly elected, so that the previous committee didn't just set the agenda and whatnot. So what I've laid out is a little bit of a map of a way of trying to basically strike a balance or a compromise on trying to meet that goal, but also thinking about the meetings that we have planned. On November 5th, that's the day after an election, sending out my welcome email, congratulatory email to the members that are elected. At that point, I could include in there an attachment of the school calendar, whatever that is, along with the school committee meeting calendar. I then would set up invitations to meet, either one-on-one or in pairs, just to keep avoid a quorum. I've already blocked November 14th in my calendar for this purpose throughout the day, either virtually or in person, to have every committee member either call, meet, come in, whatever would work, to meet and just talk through the plan and provide some input on what we cover in that first meeting. I would preview the MASC, we would pre-plan and have that workshop on November 18th, just before the 7 p.m. organizational meeting, where they'd be sworn in by the town clerk. So that workshop, I could hold the workshop, and then we could roll into the meeting where you're sworn in, the folks that are elected are sworn in, and then you go through your organizational meeting where you vote on a chair and vice chair at that moment. And then, once we're organized, you go through that selection process, but at that point, the meeting agenda has already been set by the members who were elected, so that whatever we're covering on that day, we had the opportunity to get out, post, and make sure that's posted by 1 o'clock on that Friday, and ultimately roll into that meeting and the contents of that meeting.
Any kind of questions, comments?
As always. Sorry. No, so definitely like this plan. I think this is good. I think it also sets folks up for success when they're coming in. My recommendation, if we could, this document in terms of the transition plan, maybe if we can give this out as part of the, like, when people are putting in their names to
That's a great
run,
idea.
just so at least they can plan, because just block off the dates, and if you win, great. If you don't, then
right.
You're free.
Right.
But I think just to be able to be very planful and make sure that you're available.
So you're thinking when people decide to run, have this information up front around this process that would take place?
Yeah.
So we have something maybe available, if people take out papers or whatnot, where we could hand them something where, hey, if you're running for school committee, here's a couple of procedural things that will take place after a vote. We can do that.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, because I mean, it comes by really, really fast.
Yeah.
Especially, so it's like, oh wait, I thought the first meeting was this date. It's like, no, you got all this other stuff in advance, so.
So maybe the welcome email has that, but maybe even when they take out, like seeing the calendar, I think if you're taking out papers to run, you should know anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's a good resource to provide someone who's about to commit to
2 years.
these meetings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could even, kind of add to it. I know we have other things that kind of talk about blurbs about the different subcommittees but really, like, just like a welcome packet, print out like 20 of them, give it to, see if the town clerk would be able to.
Just be able to handle
hold
the
on to
paper.
them. So, yeah, when folks kind of come and say, I'm looking to pull papers, get my nominations for this, for school committee, she might have,
Makes sense.
if that's, we could chat.
Yeah,
about
I
it.
mean, anything we can do to just to make the year happen quicker, because I think about it, like, when I first ran, the first year until the new year happened, it was just like, okay, what's happening? And it was a lot to take in, so I think if you can get something well in advance, marinate on it, and then just like, okay, yep, I know what's coming.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Makes sense.
And I think, I know we've been speaking to the community a whole bunch tonight, but just to like message a lot of this stuff, I think you can kind of like pull papers in August. And I know that right now it seems like a far away, but it happens very quickly. And so if anyone out there is interested in running for any of the town offices, that, you could always kind of ask any questions for I'm sure, this committee, over my colleagues at the town council, anyone's as well, just to see, what exactly is out there and if you're interested. And, but it really happens quickly. And, but a lot of this work here that we've been doing and that has been done in past committees as well only happens when we do have, members that are engaged and are active and ready to go. And so, yeah, please, continue to stay involved and ask any questions that you might have. All right.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay, so this works, because historically have not voted on this calendar, but ultimately, if there's some consensus around this with your approval, this is what we'll move forward with to kind of lock in, set those dates, and put them out as calendar invitations, and then update if needed moving forward down the road. Does that make sense? Okay.
Sounds great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right. Information matters. Superintendent evaluation?
No updates at this time.
Budget.
Budget. So this evening, we voted and approved the FY26 Franklin Public Schools budget, but as we mentioned, this is not the end of the process. It's still a long way to go through the town side and finance committee, and we need the revenue to fund it and make sure that we're providing the educational experience that we want to and pride ourselves in Franklin. So you can find the dates online for all the different parts of the budget process, but the particularly important ones for the community's input are going to be the Joint Budget Subcommittee meeting hearings. And we hear a lot that we need to get out into the community and listen to people, and this is the community's opportunity to do exactly that, to come and voice their opinions and concerns and tell us what they want us to hear, particularly when it comes to town school finance. So a couple of those meetings coming up. Actually, I believe we have 5 more. So the next one is tomorrow night, 7 p.m. at Remington Jefferson. Then we have another one next week, also Wednesday, the 19th, 7 p.m. at the Senior Center. And we're mixing up a little bit in different times and dates to accommodate people's schedules. We have one on Tuesday, March 4th at 9:30 a.m. at the Senior Center. Then afterwards on a Saturday morning, March 8th, 10 a.m. at Town Hall. And then the final one is Wednesday, March 12th at 7 p.m. at Franklin High. And again, there are other meetings, whether they be Finance Committee or Town Council, different subcommittees or main committees that are all involved in the process, and you can find those online. But if you'd like to make your voice heard, please come to one of these meetings and let us know what you're thinking.
All right. Thank you very much. But policy.
Policy, we went through some of the fees related to this budget that we're presenting to be determined. Just getting those back into a more sort of aligned with other districts around us for now, in a hopeful sort of way. We also are reevaluating the graduation standards that now that we don't have MCAS. So there was just a small update, and it's pretty generic. We're going to bring it to you guys soon. It's it's really just aligning with Mass General laws. So, nothing too exciting. We did talk about school, I should talk about this. We did talk about the school names again, because we did hear from the community. Not necessarily the parent community, they were sort of railing for a hurry up and give us a name, but the non-school community that, historically understands how the names came to be in the first place. And we wanted to just make sure that those people know that this was done not so much in haste as it was to get the paperwork in and can finish this consolidation, and that we can certainly address. There was no, I don't think any of us heard any lobbying against the current names. We were just cautious to, I have a William as a husband and a William as a junior, and when we're doing insurance paperwork and things like that, it's very confusing. So I would imagine trying to close, 10 schools and then, rename 4, but 3 of them have the same name, it would, kind of be challenging. But to the larger community, this isn't set in stone. We're not wasting money getting new signs, we're not doing any of that yet, and this will be something that we're gonna keep on the policy agenda to talk about. Anything else? And then we sort of brought up the letter. Did you want to talk about that?
Yeah, well, from when we had Pete from Franklin TV come, and we had kind of discussed, he had talked about those legislation to add that the same fee that's currently on cable over to streaming, that, so we wrote up a letter, it'll kind of come before us, I think, on the 11th, that we can kind of go, take a look at, and basically just as a school committee, look to see if we want to, support this legislation for our legislative leaders.
So, that's about it for now, the policy, a lot going on.
Community relations?
Community relations, so the February newsletter had gone out last week. Last week. It's already gone by really fast. Our legislative forum is set for the 24th at the high school. Once again, Dave McNeil will be our MC. Sorry, I was looking at McNeil, Dave Callahan, yeah, one of the Daves. You're one of the same, yeah. Dave Callahan will be our MC, and we'll be with Senator Roush and Rep. Roy. They've both confirmed. We've sent them out the prepared questions, but during this format, there'll be a section for Q&A as well. So if the public's questions have not been asked, there'll be that opportunity. So, and then our next meeting for community relations is not until the, I had it, hold on one second, the 18th of March.
And thanks for all the work that went into the legislative forum. I'm excited, about that. And he had mentioned that they'll take a look at the questions and flip it back if there's any.
Yep.
Okay, fantastic. All right, awesome. And how about joint PCC?
Joint PCC, so we have not met since our last meeting, our last school committee meeting, that is. The next meeting is on the 25th of February. It's outside of our cadence because the 18th, which would be a normal date, is during school vacation week, so figured Mr. Jagier would like a break for once.
The 25th is conflict with a different meeting that we have. We have negotiations that night, and we roll into this. Do we have school committee that night? No.
No.
It's just that.
Just
okay.
Okay.
So depending on the time,
okay.
we can
Good.
figure it out.
You're a very busy man, yeah. Yeah, so more to come, but really it's just the same. The PCCs are doing their work offline to establish the leadership structure for the new PCCs and work through the bylaws, which we'll start talking about after the structure is established, and then just really next steps of how to really prepare for next year.
Okay. Terrific. How about school wellness?
Yeah. SWAC we met today, and we are a group of 15 people. As we know, I want to elaborate what we did at the SWAC today to the community. Like we have been divided into 2 groups, one in nutrition and the physical education. We said as a nutrition group is working to improve food access, We are partnering with the food pantry to expand the weekend backpack program through marketing and process improvements. A survey has been already sent to these high school students to learn more about their access to and preference for school meals, that is school lunch and breakfast program. The other group, the physical education, we revived all the survey results from teachers about classroom movements. We will organize the data by school level, elementary, middle, and high school, and create a one-page resource to help teachers add more movement to lessons. This is what we did at the SWAC. We are meeting every other month. Yeah, so we are having 6 meetings in a year.
Listen, thank you very much. And mental health and well-being task force.
We haven't met since the last meeting. The last thing we did was the Panther Pride.
Which was fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you for stopping by.
I appreciate it. I needed that.
I'm glad you enjoyed your resources, Charles.
You were gone when I got there. Got back.
You know, it's a long day.
Yeah, I know.
I can send you them.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
The assistant superintendent and the head of the mental health and well-being task force throwing shade. How about reorg liaisons?
We have not met since last committee meeting.
We've talked about meeting multiple times.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, we'll get something on the books in the next couple of weeks just to get an update and see how things are going.
Okay. And I know we had mentioned the March 11th, big transportation update expected.
New business, so that's going to come up, so I can share that.
I won't
Yep.
give a spoiler then. So why don't we then just consent agenda?
Okay. I recommend approval of the minutes from your January 28th, 2025 meeting as detailed. I recommend approval of the request of Kaylin Callahan, Ellie Bowser, and Val Gemsky to take 5th graders to Roger Williams Zoo, Providence, Rhode Island on June 5th, 2025 as detailed. I recommend approval of the request of Lisa Paulus to take 4th graders to the Stadium Theater, Woonsocket, Rhode Island on March 20th, 2025 for the Math Maniac show as detailed. I recommend acceptance of $225 in the memory of Richard Ayer III as follows. $50, Luke Yenka, Unified Sports Supplies. $175 for Robert and Margaret Kelleher Gibson, Supplemental Supplies. I recommend acceptance of $1,200 from the Franklin Music Boosters for Lifelong Learning Music Academy scholarships as detailed. I recommend the acceptance of $720 from music parents for field trips for the music department as detailed. I recommend the acceptance of $95.05 from Ohio Pile Prints Incorporated for in-house enrichment at FHS as detailed. I recommend the acceptance of $150 from Chris and Veronica Diorio for supplemental supplies in memory of Kathy Bonnie as detailed.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as detailed?
Move to approve the consent agenda as detailed.
Second?
Second.
Discussion, questions? Just want to sincere thanks for all those who make these donations and contributions. Really appreciate it. Thank you. All right. And we'll come on a motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Motion carries. First meeting of the month, apparently. Feels like we've been meeting constantly. But good of the order. Anyone has anything they would like to say, add, discuss? Okay. All right, then citizens' comments. Are there any citizens in the council chambers or online who would like to speak on an item that is not on tonight's agenda? All right, seeing none. New business, Mr. Jagir.
Okay, so as you forewarned, we will have the district transportation presentation on March 11th, and we're anticipating on March 25th having a reorg update as well, what's more kind of school-based to kind of hit on some of the progress we're making in those areas. So those are the two things that will occur in March. I'm sure there'll be other items as well as we evolve. Before the 11th, we do plan to schedule that meeting, Mr. Griffith and Mrs. Gallagher, so that we can get in the same room and talk through kind of the update and get some feedback on some of those parts. So those are the most recent updates. I just want to say two things. One, I want to wish everyone a happy break next week. And the second thing I wanted to mention was I did the all-call for our cancellation of school. It's a new system, and we have always traditionally sent a phone call home, and I did not realize, I didn't see the capability when I was trying to navigate that early in the morning. And moving forward, I've found the area. I know how to do it now. So my goal is to continue what people have been used to, which is an email with a phone call and some of those alert features. We have text alert as well. So we'll utilize the system. So I'm still learning, and I saw that, and we want to make that as part of the process as we move forward. My hope is that we don't need to do that, but, weather dependent. So we'll keep that in mind.
All right, terrific. Thank you very much. Now, finally, it's wild, it's not 10 o'clock yet, but we're going to be adjourning to executive session. We will not be returning to open meeting pursuant to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares, and to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel. Is there a motion?
Motion to enter executive session.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right.